One time, Kathy lost her voice completely, like completely. And it happened the day of the show. And the people that hired us for the show knew that she didn't have a voice. So we get on stage and we thought, well, you know, all these people are here. They're going to want to hear the show. So I sang a whole bunch of Stevie songs. And we got in a boatload of trouble.
We're close to performing in all 50 states, which is a big deal. We're looking at Alaska as a bucket list. We'd love to get up to Alaska to perform too. Other bands that tried this and they were struggling with the idea of not having improvisational sections with the orchestra. They talked to us about it and they're like, oh, that's going to be real hard for us. And we understood.
Especially if you move to the left or to right, you're going to get a violin player coming at you with a baseball bat. That's what I found in the past. There's no doubt about it. We are ready to rock and roll with another interview. This one's a great one. This is with the band members from the band Tusk, Fleetwood Mac tribute. They are incredible, let me tell you. Today we have Scott McDonald, Kathy Phillips, and also Kim Williams. I am so excited about this interview. We're going to hear the backstory. They've been together for like 17 years. That's a long time, doing like 90 to 100 shows a year. It's crazy, right? But I'm so excited to talk with them. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. And we just appreciate you showing up. We cannot wait to bring this series to you every Wednesday. We drop a new episode. All right, I'm talking here. I'm rambling. Let's get into this. Where are you guys? They're called Tusk, a tribute to Fleetwood Mac. I have Scott McDonald. Who else do I have? Her name is Kathy Phillips. And we have a surprise guest coming on a little bit later, we hope. And it's Kim Williams. And thank you guys for joining. I am so excited to ask you 5 million questions that I have. I'm not going to get to them all. So what I like to say is we're going to do a part 2, because part 2s are going to be more questions and more things we can find out. And in part 2, I will ask you what color your guitar is. So you better have that one ready.
Will do.
But you guys have, known each other for about 30 years from what I know. And you can correct me if I'm incorrect about any of this stuff, and toured together for about 17 years and have done 90 to 100 shows annually. Do I get my facts correct here?
It sounds pretty right.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh my God, the history. I didn't realize it was that long.
I know.
Tell me how you guys got together, even maybe prior to doing the Tusk band. What was the story behind that? Did you guys play together before?
Yeah, the drummer and I have known each other since we were 5 years old, actually.
Okay.
So we were in Little League and we played together. And then in the 90s, everybody sort of started meeting each other, Kathy, Kim, and Randy, who was our bass player. Everybody just started to intermingle in projects, all in and out, duos, trios, and bands. Then it was a mutual friend of ours who said, you guys should do a Fleetwood Mac tribute. You're all doing Fleetwood Mac in your respective projects. Why don't you try something? And we mulled it over and said, yeah, this is great. And at that time, Kathy and I actually were the only two that hadn't really worked together. So I was excited to work with her. I knew she was really, really talented, and I had seen her in the area and all that. And so that was a thrill for me to get to work in a band with her. And
so you guys got together, said, hey, we're going to do this tribute band and we're going to make it a thing. At what point did you realize this was going to be something of more of a full-time than just, say, a part-time bar band?
Yeah, I think it was sort of after maybe one of our first shows, like the reaction was really, really well received. So we were at first we kind of just did it as like, we'll just do a couple shows and see how it goes. But it really, really took off. So that's all I can say is like, it just took off, and we love all the music, and it's just been great since day one.
Now, I have a question for both of you being musicians. What non-Fleetwood Mac artists shaped your approach to your roles? So aside from being influenced, obviously, by Fleetwood Mac, is there any other artists that shape your, the way you play, the way you sing?
That's quite a list. How you said there'll be a part 2, right? Maybe a part 3 we'll need.
Listen, I'm ready. Let's go. You're not threatening me with a good time, but no, yeah, there's always influences,
And we're taking turns. So for me, it starts back with the Beatles, of course. Everything starts with the Beatles for me.
Sure.
And then it goes to Led Zeppelin. It goes to Freddie Mercury, Billy Joel. And then you get into the 80s and 90s, and you get into more experimental things like Radiohead and things like that. But you pull from everything that you listen to, and you hope it shapes who you are as an individual. So, but
absolutely.
But everything fundamentally starts with the Beatles for me. I remember that when I was real little, and then those albums, Led Zeppelin through. That was what shaped me as a player and a singer.
Yeah, I'm a huge Beatles fan. In fact, I just came back the other day from seeing McCartney. So
nice.
That was for me, it was like, wow, But yeah, and how about you, Kathy?
I'm sort of, the same with where Scott was talking about, but I really kind of really look towards the women singer-songwriters and the women musicians. I really loved Carole King growing up. I loved Joni Mitchell, and then Ann Wilson, Chrissie Hynde, Pat Benatar. So I was growing up, and I looked at these people. They were just really influential in my life. And of course, Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie were too as well. But all those strong women of the 70s and the 80s were just for me.
I always say for me, in my opinion, it's like when you turn on, whatever streaming platform you get your music from today, those artists still resonate with me. It's just timeless, and they're so strong. The writing is so strong. That's some great influences there. I can't even argue with that. That's and I could see, shaping into the band Tusk and both of your influences into that music, how just, it makes your own musicality or, just makes you stronger as an artist, having those influences. Even me as being a musician, I'm influenced by, Beatles, very, very strong. People make fun of Ringo, but man, I just think he's one of the best out there, So, I totally agree. How about taking it back? So your bar band days, what's a few things from those days that you still use today in the big theaters that you play?
Well, you cut your chops in the bars and you learn that momentum is everything. So dead air is a killer on stage. So, we've made it a point to have a flow to our show where there's never any dead spots, where things move together, flow together. There's either talking or music moving or visuals at all times. So it's engaging to the people that have taken the time to come and see it. And talking to the crowd, that's a big part of it. You want to interact. You don't, for instance, want to look down at your instrument and play for 2 hours and never look up, So you really want them to feel like they're part of it. They're almost on stage with you together, and we're all in this room and we're sharing it together. So that's what I took from my bar days playing and the club days playing.
So everybody, welcome Kim Williams to the podcast. She was out looking at guitar colors to try and get Scott knowing what his guitar colors are. I don't know. I'm making stuff up. I guess I had to be there prior to that question. But we were getting into what has kind of shaped your own, musical background, some artists that influence you doing what you do. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Kim, this question's for you.
I would say that I have always been drawn to the piano artists. Pop music with piano always caught my ear. So I was always, drawn to Billy Joel, Elton John.
It's a tough question because there's so many artists out there.
There really are.
Yeah, through everybody's lifetime, as far as being a musician and playing, there's so much, that you listen to. You get influence. There's probably, you don't even recognize, hey, I'm grabbing this guitar lick or this drum fill or whatever it might be from another artist, that comes more just from playing over the years. But no, you named some great artists. What's the system, we're going to talk behind the scenes, that keeps you guys on time, in tune, and profitable? Do you have a whole management team? Do you have crew? Let's talk about that because, aside from the guitar colors, we have to know the inside workings of a band. People love hearing that kind of stuff because it's not like you just get on stage, play songs, and go home. There's a lot of work that goes into this. And a lot of people don't know that. They think, it's a tribute band. No, it's not. It's a machine. So what keeps that machine going? Tell us a little bit about the team. Or it could be internally from the three of you here that do a lot of that. I'd love to hear that.
Well, we have a 3-person crew. We've got a sound man, Ralph Grasso. He's been with us for quite a few years. And we have a sort of road manager / light visuals guy named Paul Palazzi. He also does the advances for the shows. He calls ahead and gets all the specs that we need. And we recently added Craig Fritchie. He's a drum tech and sort of a stagehand, and he also handles the merchandise sales for us while we're on stage and things like that. So, as far as the band itself, we've all divided up responsibilities. Kim handles like the hotels and reservations, for instance. Kathy's handling merch orders and set lists. I'm doing the financial collecting of the checks and paying the crew. Our drummer Tom, he handles the contracts and logistics with travel. And Randy, our bass player, he's in charge of the vehicles that we travel in. So we've divided up the responsibilities that way as well. So,
and is there any one metrics that matter to most to you guys, like venue reach, ad spend, market saturation, social engagement, because there's so many pieces to the puzzle, and for me, just knowing that I have to do that on my own, it's just a lot of things that you have to keep up with. And you mentioned some of them here, but even stuff like, social media management, that's like a full-time job, unless you have the laptop in your lap while on the bus and going and doing that work. Do you come together on some things like that? Like, hey, we're going to do a new website. We're going to do some new ads on Facebook. Is that more of a voting system, or is somebody just in charge of that kind of stuff?
We do meet, we try to meet as much as we can. And we talk about, if certain shows need more push to get, people in the seats. So there has to be a lot of discussion like that. And somebody also has to be looking at the ticket sales and how are the shows selling, which Scott does a lot of that. But yeah, the ultimate goal is getting people in the seats. So we got to figure out but what are the best ways to do that? And usually it's via advertising. Sometimes it's doing promotional radio interviews and things like your podcast. So it's doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, because I would imagine the venues aren't going to really do the advertising for you. You're responsible for that.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're going to put it out in their newsletter and, they might do a Facebook ad here or there, but they're relying on the band's, following and to push from you guys, to push it out there. Right.
Most of the time nowadays, the marketing departments for the theaters will contact us. And they'll say, this is what our plan is. This is when we want to announce. This is when we want to do pre-sales and then general on sale. And we'll all talk about it. For instance, like Kim's on Instagram, Kathy's working on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, Tom's got Twitter. And then we sort of say, okay, here's the release dates. Here's when things are going on sale. We're going to coordinate. And then we all try to coordinate together as a group with the theater to do a big rollout for when the show is announced. So
that's so much work. So young kids watching this, pay attention. It's very important. You do everything and you got to do it right. That's what I find talking to the successful acts like yourself, you really have to be on 11 all the time, just doing everything to pack the house and then to keep that machine going and then try and think of new ways. And I'm sure from when you started to today, it's not the same show. Even on stage, you might have some visuals that you do today that you didn't do when you started, screens or whatever it might be. I don't know what you travel with, but it's always, you have to kind of reinvent yourself. And obviously you guys are at the top. I consider you guys at the top of that world. Not only musically, but I did the video that I saw was old online. and you had visuals behind you. So, and I'm sure you're probably looking to, all right, what's in the next 10 years going to look for us? What are we going to do down the line? And trying to think of how you're going to do it, how you're going to reinvent the show, you know? So it's always something, you know, that you have to do. You can't just sit still and do nothing in order to keep a business like this going. And it is a business. It's not just a band, you know. Speaking about the tour that you do, I know that there's a lot of in-state shows and stuff like that. Do you get to, you know, go out of the country often? And I know you've played out of the country, right? And do you want to do more of that?
Yeah, I think we'd
Yeah,
love
I'd love
to. We were in
Yeah.
England. This isn't out of the country, but we were in Hawaii. We played in Barbados. It's a process. It's a lot of logistics. It's, you know, filling out international forms, getting a working visa. You know, it's like it's labor intensive in the beginning, and then you go and you play the show, and you get back, and you're like, wow, that was really, really cool. So yeah, we would love to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably exciting that you're out to a completely different audience, you know, versus in the States here. And I just think it's cool that you're getting to do that, and potentially as the band even grows more, you'll get more of those, you know, kind of shows.
One of the things about us, and this includes the other guys too, is we laugh a lot as a group. We are
love that.
always
It's true.
laughing and having jokes are flying, and even subtle things on stage where we do something and only one of us picks up and the other one does something silly. Nothing to affect the show, but just we have a tremendous amount of fun because we travel so much together, and you have to. And it keeps everything light if you end up in a situation where there's an obstacle ahead of you. It's our sense of humor that's gotten us through a lot of stuff over the years as a band. And it's the same 5 people. We have never changed members in our entire history. So
Yeah, and that's like, it just makes for a good team, you know? Every team, marriage or whatever it might be, has its ups and downs, you know? It's natural. But the fact that you guys are still doing it for this many years has to say something about your friendship, you know? And you can push through some obstacles. And I just love hearing that. I could tell this just meeting you guys for the last 45 minutes. And I love it. And I think the fans could probably feel it on stage, which makes a difference as well. So you do these long runs, right? So you're out on the road for a long time. How do you manage your voice, your hands, stamina, like any particular things you do? Because man, you know, I'm sure there's some things in place if somebody loses their voice, somebody's going to be picking up some vocals, you know? So how do you handle that? Do you guys go out and party 24 hours after each show? I mean, I hear that helps, you know, that's just
I may
me.
need to lay down after this interview. I'm already tired. So,
Right,
that's not happening.
Right. No, but is there certain routines that you have, you know, because you're going from one show to the next, you know, I don't know how your bookings work exactly or what the tour looks like, but you know, I looked at your schedule and you're playing a lot. So how do you stay, you know, maybe you can just answer to that a little bit.
I can name one thing is getting enough sleep. We got to get sleep. That's for me. That's my like top priority is sleep. And honestly, like back in the day when we first started this, we did party after the shows, and it was so
Sure.
fun. But after so many years, and then
You learn.
yeah, you can't do it anymore. It's just you can't. So
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
thing we don't do anymore. So other members of the band and the crew still do that. So they're they're still on.
You know, they're
The ones who don't
they're
have
the
to
crew.
The 3 of us are back in our hotel rooms real early.
And that's the thing. And even like, just, you know, you have to take care of yourself because each show has to be at a certain level. Is there anything in place if somebody loses their voice? You know, what happens, you know, or have you had that happen to you?
Yeah.
Oh
Sure.
yeah, we have. We have.
All of us at one time or
Yeah,
another.
absolutely. We will stack the show with more of the other 2 songs and go lighter on the one who's not well. Do the songs that are sitting more easily in their voice. One time, Kathy lost her voice completely, like completely. And it happened the day of the show. And the people that hired us for the show knew that she didn't have a voice. So we get on stage and we thought, well, you know, all these people are here. They're going to want to hear the show. So I sang a whole bunch of Stevie songs and we got in a boatload of trouble because they wanted to hear Kathy, but they couldn't hear Kathy. Like we were really in a catch-22 with that, because we couldn't be like, well, we're not going to do the show, but we couldn't obviously replace her either, because they didn't want that either. So it was hard
And it
to
was
know what to
last minute.
do.
It was like
And it was last minute. Yeah,
hour before the
it was a
show.
tough one.
The show must go on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that, you might compensate for each other and just do the best you can, because you don't have a choice. It's not like you have your sound guy is going to sing all of Kathy's parts. It's just not going to happen. So you have to compensate. So I'm sure after this many years, you have things in place for that. But you're absolutely 100% correct, Kathy. Sleep is like the best friend to your voices, and even for playing, it's physical to play. And not only that, forget about the singing and the playing. You got to put out that emotion to the audience. It's draining, night after night. People don't realize it's like, I call it my dance monkey dance, where you have to dance all the time and be on for the 2 hours. There's no letting up, because you can't let the audience know that I'm sick or anything like that. So you're pushing through. When you get off stage, you're like, yeah, I'm done. Goodbye. See you guys. And you go back to the hotel room and just sleep or whatever you need to do. No, that's good to know.
We recently purchased a sort of a gigantic RV truck to travel in, and it's got places to lay down, and like a bathroom and a full-size fridge and all this stuff. So now when we travel, if somebody doesn't feel well, which actually just happened on the last run that we were on in the southern United States, Kathy got a cold. Not a bad one, but she got a cold, and she was able to rest. She was able to lay down, pull the curtain, not have to talk.
Not talk to anybody. Yeah.
And because of that, she was able to preserve her voice through the 4 or 5 shows that we had. And everything worked out okay. So that has helped a lot, because whoever isn't driving now can get rest actually during the drive, which we used to have a van and we used to all sit up, and you know how that is, after a while get cramped.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a little PTSD from those days in our group, but this is a lot. This was a lot nicer for travel now. What we have, and it's helped us.
And is this just recently you acquired the van?
Yeah, just over the summer. Yep, we just got that over the summer. So
it also having the bathroom in there too. Now we can actually hydrate and drink more water.
Yes,
because we don't have to stop as much to go to the bathroom.
That's right.
It's isn't it the little things in life, right? And that's what they say. Do you have any favorite venues to this date that are you just love going there and playing?
Oh my gosh.
And it could be, and here it's kind of a not a trick question, but a question that from even maybe a musician watching this that plays in a tribute band will go, oh, I can totally relate. So it could be either a place that you go, man, the audience is great here every time, or I just love the acoustics here. This place sounds great, even though you have your in-ears here. But still the acoustics of a place, an old theater or something like that. I'd love to hear if you have any favorites.
Sure. I love, we play a place called the Blue Gate Theater in Shipshewana, Indiana, which is a beautiful room.
Haven't been there.
It's Amish country. So you stay on the grounds, which is always great when you stay right near the stage and you can walk from your hotel to the stage. And then the next day they have an incredible Amish breakfast, and we gauge so many of our shows on the food now, and we remember them on the food, that we talk about that breakfast all year long until we get to it. But it's a great
you look
room.
forward to it.
It's just, they treat you so well, and the stage is phenomenal. The sound is great. The visuals. It's for me, that's one of the real fun ones that we get to do. So,
and that's like a big theater with like an auditorium type seating. And how many seats was it? Like 1,800 or something like that. It's really big. But then one of the ones that I love so much is a very small state theater in Falls Church. So State Theater in Falls Church, Virginia. And it is this little clubby bar type of place where you're not sitting, you're standing, and they're crushed up against the stage. And I'm telling you, the moment we start playing, they are bananas. The energy from the crowd is incredible. And that's, when you feel that energy, you just, it so feeds what you're doing, and then you're like, you get to the end of the show and you're like, wow, that was a great show. And you probably didn't play any differently than you did at the show the night before where everybody was like off clapping, but it just felt so different, so I like that place.
It's the audience reaction that really
Yeah.
makes the show, no, I can totally relate to that. So, the one question we were talking about before you popped in, or the one I was going to get to, was Fleetwood Mac. I'm sure in the people to come to see the band, the cross-generational attraction. How do you explain that? Because, Fleetwood Mac is just crossing over, I feel, for every generation now.
I mean, it's timeless. It's classic. There's nothing trendy about it. There's no gimmicky kind of let's grab them by using this weird thing. It's just good, pure rock, pop music that just appeals to everybody all the time. I mean, maybe not everybody, but it's a very broad appeal to a very broad group of people, I think.
Yeah, because it's funny how there's so many, and then now they use the term yacht rock bands out there. So and people are incorporating Fleetwood Mac into their set lists of that. So you go, well, is that really yacht rock? But it just crosses over. Where in the back, I think, of people's minds, you go, well, I'm not sure exactly the date we heard Fleetwood Mac. But it's all over the place. So I think it does cross with generations, the music. Do you think there's any make or break sonic details in the music of Fleetwood Mac when you're performing that you're like, this has to be here and this is like something that's a big part of the sound? I know what I feel they are, but I would love to hear from you.
The harmonies are key in what we do, the 3-part harmonies right away. That's the big center of their sound, especially when Lindsey and Stevie joined the band. So, you start from there, and then you look. For me, there are sounds that he utilizes on his guitar. I have some of his exact effect pedal that he uses and things in my rig, just to try to make sure that, for instance, the sound on Dreams, the swirling guitar, or the crunch and Go Your Own Way on the solo, those things are definitive. With some of their other stuff, there's more of a looseness to it, and you could play around with it. But those are the things I think that define the sound. So,
and who is in charge of mapping out those harmonies? Because they're not easy harmonies. And so my question would be: is somebody in the band like maybe more of the musical director or more of the vocal director that maps out those lines?
You're going the opposite way.
Who are you pointing at?
Yeah.
The lines already exist, but for some reason my ear grabs them very, very easily. I'm a choral music lover, and I've sung in choirs.
Yes.
Kathy has too, but I just I my ear has always just really grabbed on to harmonies ever since I was a kid. I would listen to songs in my bedroom and I would always sing the harmony, and my mother would come into my bedroom and be like, "Ooh, that sounds nice." Because she would notice that I wasn't singing the melody, I was singing something different. So I just kind of naturally am the one who says, "No, you got to sing this part."
No, that's awesome. And do you work those out now I'm sure at this point in your career, you have songs that you play all the time, but let's say you're pulling out something new for the catalog, from the catalog for the show. Is that done at a rehearsal, or is it done before sound check? And how long does it take you? Because I got to imagine at this point, they come a little easier for the three of you than when you first started. So the question would be, does that get mapped out at a rehearsal, or?
We don't really rehearse anymore, because we just don't have the time because we're always playing. But what we'll do is we'll learn things on our own. And for the most part, I can't even imagine an instance where we are not singing the original part of the person for whom we are playing. Like I always sing Christine's parts and Kathy always sings Stevie parts. And I think that's one thing that makes us unique, because not all the Fleetwood Mac tributes have a Lindsey who can sing the Lindsey parts, because he sings pretty high. So you often get, and this is not a criticism, but it is what it is. You'll often get on Go Your Own Way, you'll often get one of the women singing, "You can go your own way," because it's high, but Scott nails it every time. So that's fun for us.
This is like something that in the tribute, obviously this podcast is all about tribute bands, but your feeling And now you're able to give a really good, solid opinion, I feel. In the tribute band world, what makes a tribute band a good tribute band? Some people don't even like to call it a tribute band. They call it, I had one person, no, I'm an untribute band, because, they're not doing, say maybe the full costumes or outfits, and they're just concentrating on the sound to make it sound like the original recording. Do you have any feelings towards that? I know that it seems you get to blend a little bit of everything from maybe what you wear. The sound of the band is just incredible. Like I was telling you, I was listening to it and it sounded like the record to me. You definitely perfected the sound. So I love that. That's not easy to do. But what's your feeling on the tribute scene? One way or another, do you feel it should be this way or not this way?
I have thoughts on that. So earlier in the question, you said, what makes a good tribute band? There are so many Fleetwood Mac tributes coming out, and ever since Christine passed away, I mean, it was like 10 a week were coming out. We were seeing them come through our feeds, and that's great. I mean, there has to be room for everybody because everybody wants to do it. But we are not Fleetwood Mac. We don't pretend to be Fleetwood Mac. So I feel like we have done a good job finding the balance between presenting their music but still being us, and using our own chemistry that we have as a fivesome to enhance what we're presenting to the audience through the Fleetwood Mac music.
I think you hit it right there, because I think there's also something to be said about studying the music and playing it super accurate, from the standpoint of, I had another band on and they said, well, the same thing, there's a million tribute bands out doing what they're doing as well, and more every day, one pops up every day. But he says it's the ones that really study the bands, that get it and can perform like the bands and sound like the bands. And it's not even us that makes us great. It's the audience that knows the difference. And they come back show after show after show. And they said that's what they feel makes the difference from a tribute band. And he was saying, and I call them more of cover garage band, because, they're a little more sloppy, or they don't put the energy. They can just show up and say, hey, I'm going to play this song. And it just doesn't sound accurate. And he says, that's why they're still playing the venues that they're playing, the smaller venues, and they're not growing because they didn't put the time and effort into the show. And I think, to me, calling it a tribute or an untribute, the person that called it an untribute was just because they wanted to make it sound like the record and not do anything else, and not the costumes. And they're very successful at doing that. You know what I mean? But that's their own niche. So they go in that direction. But from what I see is you do some elements of a little bit of everything, which I love. Is there like one song that was the hardest song to nail down out of the set list? And that could be either, and that's a really wide question, I know, and a loaded question, but I'm going to open it up to even make it harder. Vocals or music, So
we've been doing this for so long. It's hard to remember when some of these songs were challenging. I mean, some of the songs, I should say, some of them have evolved, because Fleetwood Mac was quite an improvisational group prior to Lindsay, and even after Lindsay joined, they did a lot of, in the moment jamming, and they still did right up until they weren't playing anymore. So a song like "Go Your Own Way" has evolved from just the standard record version to having a longer jam at the end. A song like "Rhiannon," actually, the way we do Rhiannon, I think it's almost 10 minutes long. I think the version we do, right? Something like that. And it's got pieces and dynamics where you bring everything down and people drop out and they come back in. All of that came about through playing sort of organically. We spontaneously arranged it through our own personalities and listening and playing with each other and intuition, I think. So,
I mean, that's what I was going to ask, because speaking to other bands, they would borrow some versions from live versions, but it seems like your extended versions are really coming about from your own jamming as a band, and you're figuring, all right, we're going to arrange this outro this way. It's not like you studied the 70 live video version and took it from that. You're creating your own versions. Am I correct?
I think so. I think that our longevity has allowed us to explore studio versions and then explore some live versions and then put it all together in our own way. And so we just sort of are a soup of all the things we've heard and developed along the way. So
it's great that you guys have the history you have, and it's almost like you could just not even look anymore on stage and you just naturally, vibe with each other. I'm always curious. So you do about a 2-hour show or 2 1-hour sets, or however, I'm sure each venue is different, but how do you decide from the radio staples to the deep cuts? Because I am sure you get the fans that come up, what about this cut? I didn't hear this in your set.
Every show, probably.
Probably. Who's in charge of that? Is that you, Kim, again? Oh, Kathy, let's go to you.
You know what it is?
Right.
There's only so much changing we could do this set, because you got to put in all the hits. So
Absolutely.
that only leaves like a few spots for some of the, the lesser known but really cool songs, which we do. So we cover the majority of the hits, and then we also throw in some, some of the lesser known songs, like I'm So Afraid. Like, we'll put that one in. That one wasn't a hit, but it's a great song. And people that are fans of Fleetwood Mac, they love hearing that stuff. So
now, what about like if you go way back to the Bob Welch days
or the Peter Green stuff? Yeah, we put that in there too.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, because I was going to say there's probably, obviously people that follow the band like from day one to now are looking for some history of songs. And it's great that you can throw that in there. And if I would come to a show, which I will, and I heard something like that, I'd be a little bit surprised. And that's, props to you guys for doing that, because I think that's, just not doing the existing lineup,
Yeah, and that was a big part of the band's history, is the 60s, when it had Peter Green and Bob Welch, and we try to cover that, because we try to pay, we're paying tribute to Fleetwood Mac as they were throughout the years. So
sure. What about solo stuff?
Yeah, we do solo stuff too.
Okay. And is that a big fight? Do you guys get into like a ballroom fight between the three of you and throw down to the ground and figure it out and say, we're not doing your song, Kathy, tonight. It's not your turn.
Yeah, we've thrown in mostly the Stevie solo stuff, because there's a lot of more hits there. But we have done some. Christine has some really great solo pieces, and so does Lindsay. So Lindsay's probably we haven't covered as much as the other two.
Well, I have to hear Holiday Road if I come to
that
a
one
show.
we
You
do.
gotta throw that in.
That's the one we do.
For real?
Yeah, we do that. Yeah,
I was kind of joking, but I love that song.
No, we'll do it. If you're coming, we'll do it.
And a lot of people
my
don't know
gosh.
that's Lindsay.
Yeah, a lot of people don't
Yeah,
realize.
I mean, well, it's like, I think it's because it was a soundtrack and stuff like that. Sometimes that gets hidden from the artist, but most musicians, they study, they know, they know the deal. But no, that's great that you do that. Yeah, I mean, running 90 to 100, am I accurate in the amount of dates that you guys do a year? Is that an accurate number to this date? Is that the shows you guys do?
Yeah.
That's a huge operation to do something like that. So you did some orchestra shows, am I correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. First of all, I love when bands play with orchestras, but I don't think a lot of people understand what goes into a show like that. So I have a question. How do you budget things like charts? Because I would imagine you have to get charts for every player out there. Is somebody in the band write the charts, score that? How does that work? And I don't even know how many shows a year you do like that. But, I gotta figure that's a little of a cost as well.
It is. We got the idea to do it from our former booking agency. And Tom, our drummer, and I went to high school. We went to high school together, and we were friends with another guy that we did all our music classes and stuff with. And he's a composer. He lives up in Boston. So we contacted him to see if he would write out, orchestra charts for, I think we gave him, a list of maybe 10 songs, or was that about right? I would say about 10 or 11 songs for the first show.
That's where we started, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we started with. And he gave us a price, and we said, well, if we book enough of these shows, we'll recoup the cost of it, and it's a good investment. So we did it. And it was very stressful, but very fun. We had a really good time. We did it again the next year with the same group. It had a couple more songs done. And then we ended up doing a full 2-set show of charts. So like we are done, I think, with scoring.
Wow.
We may have 1 or 2 more songs that would be a little odd to score, but we could do it. But we're pretty much ready to play with any instrumentation of symphonic orchestra out there, and we're ready and willing to do it.
I love that you're doing that. And do you plan on doing more? Are there more shows like that on the tour already
Not
booked?
on the books yet, but we'd like to. It's just you got to get the group that really wants to be associated. Sometimes, orchestras don't really want to do the pop shows. And a lot of times they do them because they want to increase their draw. They want to appeal to a younger age group. So they think, well, let's get into a different style of music and see what that does. So we're always looking, and we're always willing to do it.
I love it. I have to give you guys props for doing that, because I think it's so interesting if a band, first of all, it's so tough to pull it off, as you all know, bringing it all together. But the fact that you're doing it is just incredible. So keep that going. And then let me know when you do it, because I want to come,
Yeah.
But
It's a cool experience.
It sounds
Oh my
amazing.
gosh.
It's sometimes when we're performing it and then you listen to it, you kind of almost like have to catch your breath because it's so beautiful what they do.
Yeah, I love being in the studio, and if I ever, when I get the chance to record with an orchestra, it's just, for me, that's probably my favorite time in the studio. No offense to my bandmates that are in there that are playing bass, guitar, and all that, but a whole string section, there's nothing like it.
It's also it's a different kind of mindset when you play too, because generally we're an improvisational kind of group on stage, but with an orchestra, you can't do that. You really, everything is written, and they're looking at their work as it's a completely different way of thinking when you're performing. Like, you have to know the arrangement and be locked in, so the player's with you, because if you deviate, they're not sure where you're going. So we know of other bands that tried this, and they were struggling with the idea of not having improvisational sections with the orchestra. They talked to us about it, and they're like, oh, that's going to be real hard for us. And we understood.
Especially if you move to the left or to right, you're going to get a violin player coming at you with a baseball bat. That's what I found in the past. There's no doubt about it. They don't want any of that movement. You got to stay right in the center and move down that line.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I've seen you guys build as like the world's #1 tribute band, Fleetwood Mac tribute band. How do you deal with not getting into awards? Now, I've just seen it, from doing my research online. Do you ever get any pushback from that? You deserve it, in my opinion.
Yeah, somebody once said, like, what's the qualifier for that? So, like, how did you come up with that? Which we've changed that since then. We're now the classic tribute.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, because there's so many bands out there just alone, and you're always going to get somebody that's going to comment, and they have something to say, whether you like it or not. Welcome to the world of social media. But I was just curious about that. But you've changed that, and it might be a little less stressful for you guys. But no, that's great. You mentioned that and I think you mentioned this, but you have merch. Do you guys, like, after the show, do meet and greets as well?
We do.
And do you try and do that at every show
Yes.
because I think it's great for your fans and stuff like that. Is it before the show you do it, after the show, or when does that occur?
After the show, we always do the meet and greet. Well, I mean, there's some special meet and greets that are set up for like VIPs or things like that, which we do before. But for after the show, we go out after every show and just meet with the people, because that's really, I love that, because I love hearing their experiences from the show. And a lot of people are like, they're so grateful that we're still carrying on the music, and it's just wonderful to hear the feedback. So for me, I love that part of the show.
I think it's great. I think that all bands should do it. I don't see why they shouldn't, because these fans are coming to see you, and they've probably been to multiple shows. And it's funny. It's like, they're getting that experience of Fleetwood Mac where maybe, they can't get it right now. And so getting that experience, they want to meet those people that are giving them that, experience. The fact that you guys go out and do that, I think they just love it. I've seen it happen to my friends that, do meet and greets afterwards. And I watch it could be even just if it's an all ages show, you should see if a KISS, member comes up to them in costume. They're just like, because that could be their very first show that they see.
That happens quite a bit, where people will come up with their kids and say, this was my son or my daughter's very first show. And a lot of times our drummer will give them a pair of sticks, or I'll give them a guitar pick. And a lot of times we hear emotional stories from people that, this song I was listening to with my father when I was growing up, or this song, me and my wife or my husband, we dance to this song at our wedding. I mean, there's a lot of emotional connections to this music. And when you hear it in face to face, it moves you that you don't realize sometimes how much of an impact that what you do has on people until you meet them.
It's the truth. It really is the truth. All right, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to nerd out and talk a little bit of tech to you guys. So has there been any, through your shows, tech updates? And by that, I mean, it could be anything from sound to, production to monitoring. Over the years, believe me, when you guys started 17 years to now, there's a lot of tech improvements, even from, you, Scott, I'm sure there's technical things that you use for effects that may be just easier to program or whatever it might be, the same with keyboards that are out there. So, and I'm talking like an overall tech thing. So I'd just love to hear from the three of you.
I would say it probably started with starting with the instruments we started with to moving more toward the more authentic ones, like Scott plays now a Rick Turner, which is what Lindsay played. I started out sitting with one keyboard. Now I stand with two keyboards because now I use a second keyboard to get all the 80s sound effects that Christine uses. I do a lot of two-hand playing, so I can get the, piano in one hand and a synthesizer in the other. Tom, he reverses his drums to play like Mick. So it was all instrumental first. And then we got to a point, going along, and then we got to a point where our sound man, Ralph, would be like, I think it's time for us to start moving with our own soundboard. So, and this was many years down the road, but we bought our own soundboard and our own, we moved from floor monitors to in-ear monitors, which we still use now, is a great, highly recommend. That was a great evolution there.
Yeah, I mean, those are two tech things that, from 17 years ago, now you could pop a thumb drive into a board and it presets all your, recalls all your settings.
Yes, that's what he does, yeah.
Yeah, and even with your in-ears going from floor monitors, I don't know if you do it, but you can have a mic where you can call stuff to each other, and hear it in your in-ears. That's a huge tech stuff that people don't know behind the scenes, that does make an improvement in the band, and that kind of stuff. And you think about it, you're like, oh my God, how did we not have this 17 years ago?
The in-ear thing, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Now, did it take a while? Yeah, I was going to say, some people love it or hate it. If you're coming from back in the day, did you instantly love it?
No, I didn't.
I think some of us did and some of us didn't. Yeah, it took a little while to get used to it.
Yeah.
It's a big change. For a while,
I played only with one ear in because I really wanted to hear the stage sound. And now I can't play that way. Now I have to have them both in.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself being a drummer. It's like, why can't I have this giant side fill banging everybody in my head, as opposed to just a little ear monitor? Right. And the rest of the band is, thank God there's this, So I get it. It's a big change, and it really does help out the volume on stage and stuff like that. Totally. So that's great.
It also shortens the sound checks too, because we're mixing our own ears, so we don't have to get anybody else involved, which saves a lot of time.
Oh yeah, and then I would imagine, and also a tech too. You don't have a separate monitor tech on some venues that might have that. It all travels with the console and stuff like that. Let's talk about something maybe the three of you that your fans watching this don't know about you. Now they know you sing, you play your instruments and stuff like that. Outside of that, let's talk about something outside of the band that they don't know about you. Is there any hidden surprises that people might like to know, like me?
Ooh. Uh-oh. Well, Kathy and I are avid scary movie fans.
Yeah.
So, we're
I
comparing.
love that.
Yeah.
This is our time of the year, October. We're all riled up because there's all kinds
Yeah.
of scary movies.
Scary movies every
Listen,
night.
So,
in
we talk
my
about it.
house, yeah, my wife she might as well just hang out with you guys because it's probably playing while she's working right now because they run it 24/7.
That's right.
When I go to bed, I think last night it was Halloween 1.
There it is,
so
buddy. And all three of us are cat people. So now
I
just
love
joined.
that.
You may have noticed.
I just
believe me, I had to shut my door. We have 2 giant dogs and 2 cats.
There it is.
And when I used to, at the beginning of the podcast when we started, I would just leave the door open and then it would be a crew in here. I'd be like, listen, if you're in here, I'm passing the mic. You're asking some questions, But so cat lovers.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
Scary movie and no, that's some things that most people wouldn't know if they're coming to your show. So, okay, we talked about the road. Now, what does coming home look like for the 3 of you? Is there any favorite things? Like I talked to one artist, maybe last month the interview was, and I said, all right, you got to tell me because they're doing 200 plus shows as well. So I said, when you come home, what does that look like? He's like, you want to know? I go right to the supermarket. I love shopping for food and I look around and I'm not thinking about my musical instruments, singing or performing. And I go, that's your outlet? Shopping? He's like, I swear to God. I go, okay. So, I mean, do the 3 of you have things, maybe not shopping, but when you come home, it's like, I'm in my own bed or this or that.
That's great. Being in your own bed is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And being with your
That's a
family,
plus.
as soon as you're home with your family, we're set up now. Things are getting better where we're on the road and then we have time off the road instead of constantly being on the road. And when we get breaks, you have all that time to be with your significant other, your kids, and that's fantastic to be able to be home for a couple of weeks. Actually, we have a pretty big break coming up, middle of November, I think, until middle of January. Where we only have 2 shows, which is unusual for us. We actually have Thanksgiving off this year, and I think it's the first time we've had that weekend off in over 10 years as a group. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that a treat? I mean,
it is.
Of course you're not working, but it's a treat because,
That's okay.
Probably the chances are next year you are going to be working,
Right.
So you kind of take those days. I get it. Like, life on the road is not easy, for anybody. It's a tough gig, but when you get those little days off, you're just like, this is amazing. You're like, and then, Scott turns to the band. Yeah, I blocked us off on Thanksgiving from now for 10 years from now. We're not working. I enjoyed it that much. But no, that's amazing that you get to, enjoy that little downtime and because you guys are busy. So is there any bucket list stuff for the band? You guys have any things that you're trying to do, what you see in the future?
We have a bucket list venue for sure.
Yeah.
Let's hear. What is that?
Red Rocks in Colorado.
Yeah.
You guys belong there. I think you would do great there. Is that in the line of sight? Can you see yourselves getting in there somehow, some way?
We're manifesting it.
It's never been as close of a potential, we should say, as it is at this moment. Whether we'll get in there or not is who knows, but the opportunity has never been better now with the people that we work with to do that. So,
and plus, they are having tribute bands.
They are actually get the let out plays there every year, and that's fantastic. They do wonderfully well.
Yeah.
They're great there. So, I mean, we're close to performing in all 50 states, which is a big deal. We're looking at Alaska as a bucket list. We'd love to get up to Alaska to perform too, because that's a tricky one. We got to Hawaii and we didn't think we'd get that far out there. So we're like, well, we got a few left and Alaska's one of them. And we would love to play in that state and be able to get up there. So.
What about the new business growing, which is theme cruises? Have you guys done any theme cruises? Any plans to do any theme cruises?
We're not opposed.
We haven't.
We just haven't had the opportunity to come up yet. We're just talking about this 2 weeks ago. A drummer and I were like, if the opportunity comes up again, we'll probably take it and go. Because I know they're popular.
Well, if I see anybody in that scene, I'm highly recommending you because
you got to go. Come on.
Listen, you're not threatening me with a good time with you
Dogs and
guys.
cats,
Come
man.
on.
Got to be a pet cruise for all of us.
Let's go. No, that's great. So as far as how often do you change your set list? Do you find yourself, I know that you talked about you don't really rehearse that much anymore because the set list stays the same, but will you go, we've been getting requests to do this song so many times. Will you change it up, or will you even change up a set list depending on the venue you might play?
Definitely.
So that changes often or every now and then?
I would say every now and then. I mean, that's kind of like one of our things that we're always trying to work out. Like, how do we make the show different, but with still keeping the same hit songs that you got to do. So there is sometimes only so many things you could do without changing maybe the structure of the songs and doing something different like that. Putting a solo into a different song or something like that too.
When you're playing that often, I already have a headache from thinking about what you would have to do. But it's funny, like you're playing so many shows, and now you got to go back and add a few more songs, which takes rehearsal. You don't have a chance to breathe. So I'm sure you're just trying to get through the amount of shows that you're doing. But just, switching it up every now and then, I'm sure from a musical standpoint is exciting for you guys to do something a little different.
And sometimes, like, if you're doing a big outside show, you want to make sure that you're like reaching everybody. So a lot of times we'll do more of the upbeat songs because some of the ballads are a little tough and everybody's really energetic, and then you don't want to bring the whole show down. So we change things up there and put some of the more up-tempo stuff in that set. A lot of the Stevie hits are definitely more of the mid-tempo ballady type ones. So her solo work is a little bit more upbeat. So we'll do a lot more of her solo stuff in shows like that.
Sure. Yeah. So we're out of time. And for me, I'm looking at my questions over here to stack so high. So you're right. I think we might have to do 3 interviews, 2 and 3. You did call it there, Scott. But I always like to ask this question because I know that people that are going to be watching the podcast are like young musicians that want to break into this scene. And the 3 of you being super successful, have done it for a very long time. And, it shows, the passion and the success you had. Can you offer any kind of advice for a musician that's starting out in this business? I appreciate you giving them some kind of advice.
It's funny you mentioned that because yesterday I got a phone call from a guy who is very young, 21-year-old guitar player who's starting a Pink Floyd tribute and wanted to pick my brain on a variety of questions. And there were 2 or 3 things I said to him that I thought were really valuable. One is to be objective about what you're doing, which is, I know it's hard to do sometimes, but try to step outside of your project and evaluate it. What needs work? What are we doing well? And look at the whole thing, that way and see what you can always improve and what's working. The other thing I told him is to go and see the other tributes that do the same band that you're doing and see if you can come up with something that they don't offer or they don't do.
Smart.
Because if you're just another tribute that does something that all the others do, then you won't stand out. But find out what approach you can take that'll take you out of there. And then just do everything, which is what we did at the beginning. We took every single show. It didn't matter where it was, what it paid, if it paid nothing. We just got ourselves out in front of people as much as we could. And when we did that, we got better as a band anyway because we were playing more. So those were the 3 things that I told them.
That's great advice. I just had a venue owner on the show, and he said the same thing. He's like, a lot of the bands don't understand when they're starting out. They come in to me saying, hey, I want $50,000 a show. I'm making that number up. But he's like, no, how about we give you a few thousand? You prove to me that you can sell tickets. I see your video. It's great. But you still need to prove to me that you're a value to my venue. And I think that's what you said is like, it's spot on. Plus going out and doing your homework. I mean, even for me, for this podcast, I'm seeing my wife's like, we're going to see another tribute band tonight. I'm like, yes, come on. It's only the 80th in 1 week, and she's a musician too. So I'm lucky that she gets it, but you have to do your homework. You know what I mean? To the point, Just, I want to know going into these kind of interviews, even though, I think just being a musician, I have a little bit of a head start, but the background of the band and everything like that. So from a musician going to study another Pink Floyd band, what's going to make them different than the other 20 Pink Floyd bands that are out there trying to do the same thing? So it's totally smart. How about you, Kathy or Kim? Any advice for the youngsters starting out?
Well, I was going to say what Scott said, which is just take the gig. Just take the gig. Play the show, get yourself out there, stay true to yourself. I don't know. Scott really kind of nailed it. He really did.
He did.
He really did.
He did. Great advice.
You got to have fun. You got to look like you're enjoying what you're doing on stage. You got to interact with your band members. You got to look like you like each other. You can't just be in your own world playing your instrument.
Whoa.
You got to make it. Sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to.
Come on, the video I watched was just of Scott. The camera angle was just on Scott, the entire show.
That? Everybody shut off and I was there alone. What does that mean? I know what's going on.
No, that's so true. I mean, Kathy, if you want to add anything to it, but I think really it's really just about doing your homework and taking every opportunity you can to build the following, because it's not going to just get done within a month of playing. It's years.
It's not just the music. It's everything around it, because the music is the one constant amongst all of us. So how are you going to make yourself stand out from all the rest?
That's why they call it the music business.
Yeah.
It's a business. So no, this has been great. I super appreciate you guys. Are amazing. I can't wait to see you live, meet you in person. Where can everybody find you? I'm going to put it in the description so everybody can click links, but tell them where they can find you online.
FleetwoodMacTribute.com.
There we go. We got it.
I wasn't sure who was going to answer that. FleetwoodMacTribute.com. Yes. Why are we laughing?
All right, everybody go check them out. Kim, Scott, Kathy, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We're going to do 2 and 3.
Okay.
And we're going to get into the next, just so you girls know, is like the next episode is just about every color of Scott's guitars. We're going to go into the detail, the kind of paint, everything, Anyway, this has been super fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Tribute Band Sessions podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment. Want more info? Sign up to our mailing list at tributebandsessions.com. It's the best way to stay in the loop on upcoming episodes, special guests, and behind-the-scenes stories, and all things tribute bands. And don't forget to follow us on all our socials at Tribute Band Sessions. Thanks for watching.